When you look in the mirror, you expect to see yourself. The same eyes, the same face, the same movement. But what if one day the reflection doesn't agree? They say mirrors are harmless, that what you see is just light and glass. But sometimes something else looks back. Ethan Cole thought mirrors were ordinary, just another piece of furniture in his empty apartment. Until one night, his reflection smiled and he didn't. Ethan Cole never thought much about mirrors. He used them the way most people did, quick glances before work, a glance after brushing his teeth, maybe one last check before heading out the door. They were harmless, he thought, just tools, reflections of what's already there. Until the night, he noticed the delay. It was small at first, so small he almost convinced himself he'd imagined it. He was brushing his teeth in the cramped bathroom of his apartment when, for just a heartbeat, his reflection didn't move. His hand had stopped mid-stroke, but the reflection's arm lingered, brushing one more time before freezing in sync. He'd blinked, the fluorescent light above him flickering. The mirror looked normal again. He laughed it off. "You're overtired," he muttered, and went to bed. Ethan worked nights in a quiet accounting firm, a job that left his mind numb and his sleep schedule wrecked. His apartment was the kind of place built for silence, beige walls, weak plumbing, one mirror in the bathroom, another hanging in the hall. He'd lived there 3 years and never thought about them once. But over the next few days, the moments started adding up. On Wednesday morning, Ethan was buttoning his shirt when his reflection smiled. He hadn't. He froze. The smile lasted only a second, faint and crooked, before fading. Ethan stepped back, heart thudding. "What the hell?" he whispered. His reflection stared back, blank-faced, just like him. He checked behind him, looked for movement, for something that could explain it. Nothing, just him, the mirror, and the faint hum of the old refrigerator down the hall. He didn't tell anyone at work. He didn't tell anyone at all, because what could he say? "My reflection smiled when I did." That wasn't the kind of sentence that earned sympathy. Still, he couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed. Every time he walked past a reflective surface, windows, phone screens, car doors, he felt the urge to glance, to check if it was still him looking back. And most of the time, it was. But sometimes, it wasn't quite. Friday night, Ethan stayed late at the office. Everyone else had gone home. Only the hum of servers and the buzz of the vending machine kept him company. He was reviewing invoices when he caught movement in the glass of his computer monitor. His reflection was leaning closer than he was, a face almost pressed to the screen. Ethan froze. Slowly he leaned back. The reflection didn't move. It stared at him, its eyes wide and hungry, lips curling in something that wasn't a smile. Then blink, it was gone, just him again. The monitor flickered to the login screen. He sat there for minutes, pulse pounding, trying to think rationally. Maybe it was an afterimage, maybe a trick of light, maybe his brain was just exhausted. But deep down, something old and instinctual whispered that this wasn't exhaustion. It was awareness. Something on the other side had noticed him noticing. That night when he came home, the mirror in his bathroom was fogged, even though he hadn't showered. He hesitated before wiping it clear. The condensation felt cold, colder than it should have been. And there, written on the glass in shaky, backwards letters, were 3 words. "Let me out." Ethan stumbled back, heart slamming against his ribs. The message faded before his eyes, dissolving into the fog as if it had never been there. He stood there for a long time, staring at his reflection. Then he grabbed a towel and wiped the mirror completely clean. It didn't help. The glass still looked wrong, darker somehow, deeper, as if it no longer reflected light, but swallowed it. That night, Ethan left the bathroom light on. He dreamt of mirrors, a hall of them, endless and breathing. Each reflection moved slightly out of sync, every version of himself smiling in delayed, unnatural rhythm. He ran through the hallway, his footsteps echoing on glass. At the end was a door, and in its reflection, another Ethan stood waiting. When he reached out to open the door, the other Ethan raised his hand, and placed it against the glass, palm to palm. Ethan felt the chill through his skin. Then the reflection whispered, though no sound came out. "You're in the wrong place." He woke up gasping, his sheets damp with sweat, his hand cold as ice. The mirror in his room, one he'd never hung, was now leaning against the wall. He didn't own it. He'd never seen it before. Ethan didn't sleep that night. The mirror stood in the corner of his room, tall and old-fashioned, its frame carved with twisting shapes that seemed to move when he wasn't looking. He tried to cover it with a blanket, but the cloth had fallen off sometime in the night. When the dawn light crept in, he could see himself faintly in its glass, still, quiet, but somehow waiting. He should have thrown it out, he knew that, but something about it dared him to. At the office that night, Ethan avoided reflective surfaces. He covered his computer monitor with a file folder, worked with the lights dimmed, and kept his focus on the paper beneath his hands. Around 2 a.m., he went to refill his coffee. The break room had a long window that looked out over the city. From this high up, he could see dozens of windows, each one reflecting the fluorescent glow of the office interior. That's when he saw it. In the reflection of the window, behind him, stood another man. Ethan spun around, nothing there, just empty tables and chairs, but when he turned back to the glass, the reflection hadn't vanished. It still stood there, a darker version of him, faint, as though behind fogged glass. The reflection lifted its hand slowly and pressed its palm to the window. Ethan stepped back, his breath hitched. The city below flickered, lights dimming one by one, until only the reflection's outline glowed faintly in the glass. Then it mouthed the words again. "You're in the wrong place." The reflection smiled, the lights snapped back on. Ethan dropped his mug. It shattered on the tile. He didn't even clean it up. He just grabbed his coat and left. Back at his apartment, he found the blanket that had covered the mirror neatly folded at its base, like someone had removed it carefully. He checked the door, still locked from the inside. Ethan stood there for minutes, just staring at the mirror. His reflection stood perfectly still, not matching his breathing, not blinking when he did. Then, slowly, the reflection tilted its head to the side. Ethan didn't move. It tilted further, then further, until its neck cracked at an impossible angle. He stumbled backward, nearly tripping over the folded blanket. When he looked again, the reflection was normal, standing upright. He turned away. "I'm losing my mind," he whispered, but he knew he was. Something was there. Later that night, Ethan sat on the couch, staring at his phone. He'd considered calling someone, maybe his sister, maybe a friend from work, but how could he even start that conversation? Before he could decide, his phone buzzed. Unknown number. He hesitated, then answered. A faint hiss filled his ear, like static from an old radio. "Hello." No reply, then faintly. "Ethan." The voice was his, perfectly his. He froze. "Who is this?" The line crackled. "You left me here." Ethan hung up, heart hammering. He turned off the phone, threw it on the table, and tried to breathe. When he looked up, the mirror in the corner glowed faintly, like moonlight was spilling out from within it. That night, Ethan couldn't resist anymore. Something in him, curiosity, madness, or both, drew him toward the mirror. He stood before it, bare feet on the cold floor, the glass rippling faintly like water. His reflection smiled, not cruelly this time, but almost reassuringly. Then the reflection raised its hand and pressed it against the inside of the glass. Ethan hesitated, then reached out to match it. The moment his skin touched the mirror, the glass turned liquid. Cold surged through him. He tried to pull back, but his hand was already sinking in, fingers vanishing up to the knuckle. He gasped, but before he could scream, the reflection grabbed his wrist from the other side. Its grip was strong. It pulled. The glass swallowed him whole.